So congratulations, Gayton McKenzie. Gayton McKenzie called SARU and said, do not do the meeting this week, delay it, which is exactly what a minister should be doing. It's exactly what the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture should be doing, having a look and saying, all is not right. So SARU have messed this up big time. And I think this is chairman and CEO need to be fired. It's a terrible deal. I had a look at it properly yesterday. It's a terrible deal. What I would do is, okay, Gayton's done the right thing. He stopped the process. Okay. They now need to step back, tell us why they need the money, what partner they need.
Yes, so SARU, there's a problem right now with SARU. I've actually seen Gaten McKenzie speak a lot about SARU, and I've never really understood what's really going on with SARU. So it appears that the SA Rugby, South African Rugby, actually planned to sell 20% of its stake to a newly created commercial rights company for 75 million. It's actually called Ackley Sports, but it appears that there's a lot of problems within that whole transaction. It appears that SARU hasn't been transparent, and that Gayton McKenzie, as you can see, Rob Hersov actually praises Gayton McKenzie for stopping that transaction. We don't know where the whole state of the transaction is at the moment, but Daily Maverick has a really excellent report about that. But let's listen to what Rob Hersov has to say as he praises Gayton McKenzie for stopping the whole transaction and the state of SARU, that's South African Rugby at the moment. And I'll be back for some analysis on what really is going on with.
But on SA Rugby, you're well connected. We had on one of the Biz News channels, WhatsApp channels, someone saying, why don't you ask Rob Hersov? He knows about private equity. He knows, he would give you insights into this Springbok deal that's causing so many people so much heartburn.
So I do have a background in sports, media, private equity, and finance. And I have quite a varied career. I worked at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. I raised a large private equity fund for Africa. I have run, on behalf of Richemont in Italy, what is now Sky Italia, which is a paid television business, where we bought sports rights. We were heavily involved in sports. And I founded Sportal, which is one of my bigger entities that failed, which was in sports rights and media in Europe. And I was the first foreigner to buy a football team in Italy. I don't even follow football. Vicenza Calcio for 2 years, and sold it profitably for ENIC. So I know the sports media and private equity world pretty well. And when I was at the rugby in Cape Town, these Americans were sitting behind me, and I introduced myself. Hi, I'm Bill Ackley. I'm Ted Ackley. I'm like, great. What do you do? They handed me their cards. I looked it up. Ackley Sports Group. Never heard of it. Okay, I'd never heard of it. And I know all the sports media investors. So there's CVC, there's QSI, there's Silver Lake, there's Len Blavatnik of DAZN. I mean, there's big, sophisticated players that have been investing in sports and media for a long time. I'd never heard of Ackley. And the Ackley Sports Group was founded last year. And Ackley Sports Group's sophistication in sports comes from their father, who founded a small sports operation in Seattle. They owned a couple of sports clubs. I'd never heard of the Seattle Krakens until yesterday when I had a look. So these are guys that own sports clubs, and they're private equity investors. So, if you were going to choose a partner for Springbok Rugby, firstly, you have to say to yourself, why do we need a partner? Why do we need money? Once you justify a reason, this is why we need the money. We need to expand the brand. This is the kind of partner we need. Then you look around and you say, who are the best partners in the market? And you hire a specialized professional investment banker. You can hire Investec, you can hire RMB. There's some very good people around. Or Goldman Sachs, Richard Nodder, South African's top 4 of Goldman Sachs worldwide. And you could even get them to do it for free because it's a national asset. And they value the Springbok brand, SARU. They do the valuation of the commercial entities. And then they say, right, we'd like to find a partner for 20% of this business at this valuation range. That's how you do it. And then you call up the top people and say, would you be interested? And on the basis of 1 or 2 people being interested, you begin the negotiation and you end up with a deal that makes sense. This hasn't happened. This is amateurs, absolute amateurs, who've been brought someone on a plate by Eddie Jordan, who I know very well. And let's just ask a question of Eddie's role. Firstly, I've never in my life seen a fee of 10% on a transaction. Never.
Wow.
As a pure introduction, you get 0.5 to 1%. As a pure introduction. Hi, SARU. Let me introduce you to the Achilles. Great friends of mine, smart guys. I want 0.5%. Maybe I get 1%. If you actually negotiate the deal, and I don't know who he was representing. Was he representing SARU, Achilles? Nobody's telling me. It sounds like he was just in the middle. You get maybe 2 to 3 or maybe 4%. And on a massive complicated deal, maybe 5%. Jordan is getting 10%. For what? Who's he representing? That alone makes me think there's something that SARU are either amateurs or doing something illegal. It's one of the two. Then you get into the detail, okay? And this is where you still say, well, hang on, didn't someone buy into the All Blacks? And you have a look. Silver Lake did a deal with the All Blacks at a valuation, I think, was 2.4 billion US dollars, 3.5 billion New Zealand, okay, for a minority stake. Okay, so keep that number in mind. I know Egon Durban, the chief executive of Silver Lake. Silver Lake is the 11th biggest private equity firm in the world. They've been going for over 25 years. They've done over $100 billion of commitments to companies. They own Madison Square Garden. It's a massive sports enterprise. I think APL in Australia. These are experienced, credible, known people. Achilles Sports Group was founded last year. So you start to think, how the hell did this happen? And then I read a couple of articles yesterday that said that SARU spoke to CVC, who weren't interested. Well, I can check that because I know the 3 founders of CVC. I'm going to call them later. Actually, we should just call Eddie Jordan right now online. Find out. What was your role, Eddie? Although that would ambush him, and I like him. He's a good guy. This is all the wrong way around, amateur handling, badly constructed. It's a terrible deal. I had a look at it properly yesterday. It's a terrible deal. But the most telling document that everyone should read is this letter from all the unions to SARU detailing what's wrong with the deal. And they did it in a very polite way. You know, doubtful transaction rationale and partner. Well, read between the lines. Why they're doing the deal. You know, commercial revenue growth. Wasserman is already engaged to expand sponsorship and global market access. So why they're getting Ackley in? And on and on and on. Everything is in this letter. This letter is, just read it and you'll get exactly what's wrong with this deal. So congratulations, Gayton McKenzie. Gayton McKenzie called SARU and said, do not do the meeting this week, delay it, which is exactly what a minister should be doing. It's exactly what the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture should be doing, having a look and saying, all is not right in the state of Denmark. And you know, it's a quote, by the way, for those who don't know. And all is not right here. We need transparency. We need to have a closer look, and we need to find out what the hell happened and what is going on. Because this is an absolute joke of a deal. I mean, I don't blame Ackley, okay? Good for them. These are smart private equity guys, and they've rolled SARU over. Whoever was negotiating on behalf of SARU is a joke, is an absolute joke. This is an amateur.
There's a wonderful new program on Disney Plus called Rivals, based on a Jilly Cooper book. And there was a quote in one of the episodes that really came to me. These are guys who kind of aren't doing things above board. And the one chap says to the others, it's much better to be perceived as incompetent than as dodgy. Now, in this case, where would your sense be? Because it's either rank incompetence, as you've said, but are the guys who run SARU that incompetent that they can? They are. Okay.
They are. These are amateurs. You know, I had a look at the CVs of a lot of the SARU people. These are administrators. Okay. Even the new independent directors, like one went to Rhodes University, the other went to, I don't know, some other South African university. The one guy's in the granite business. And they say, these are really competent business people. They're not. They're very ordinary business people who've been given the role of independent directors and really haven't a clue what they're doing, because they should have had the oversight to say, something's wrong, stop. I mean, SARU are administrators, they're not businessmen, and they're certainly not sophisticated financiers. You know,
So,
this is a national look. Do I mind a foreign company coming in and buying a minority stake in the Springboks, in SARU, to develop the brand internationally? No, I don't. I think it's a great thing. You know, most of the British Premier League teams are owned by foreigners. You know, it's New Zealand, the All Blacks have allowed Silver Lake to come in. I think it's a good thing. But is Ackley the right partner? I doubt it. They're much better partners. And they're private equity. They're a private equity firm. They're not a brand building organization. So SARU have messed this up big time. And I think this is chairman and CEO need to be fired at the end of this process.
Yeah, guys, really brilliant. So we'll just jump in quickly to understand what's really happening. So it actually argues that rugby unions linked to South Africa's richest men and the nation's sports minister, that's McKenzie, have set back a controversial private equity deal over the commercial rights to the country's world championship winning Springbok team. All right. So SA Rugby, which oversees the national Springbok team, it planned actually to sell 20% stake in a newly created commercial rights company for 75 million to a Seattle-based Oakley Sports Group LLC. All right. Now its member unions, the SA Rugby member unions, now they were due to vote on the deal on October the 17th, but those unions actually said that this union run clubs linked to South Africa's richest man, Johan Rupert, as well as also Patrick Motsepe. The countries it calls him here the country's only black billionaire and also pharmaceutical tycoon, Stephen Saad. So these are actually the big guys around, the unions, the clubs that are run around the unions that actually oversee SA Rugby and the national Springbok team, as it were. So anyway, it says that SA Rugby then postponed the ballot following a request by South African Sports, Arts and Culture Minister McKenzie to more fully brief the government on the proposal. And the organization said in a statement on Wednesday, gave a report about this. So in other words, McKenzie actually postponed this because he wants to brief the government regarding the fact that SA Rugby is about to enter a deal with an American-based, Seattle-based Oakley Sports Group. It says that the proposed deal was an attempt to capitalize on the success of the Springboks, and that it won, because of the fact that it actually won the last 2 Rugby World Cups, and then last month it secured the Southern Hemisphere Rugby Championship. So it says that it would follow a growing trend among national federations of successful rugby teams, most notably New Zealand's All Blacks, to raise funds from private equity as money managers increasingly turn to sport leagues and associations rather than the teams to diversify their investment risk. But anyway, now here this report argues that this delay to this vote is actually a blow to South Africa's rugby authorities, who, despite the success of the Springboks, they lag in the commercial income of their largest rivals. So SA Rugby has tried to clinch a private equity deal since 2018, but it hasn't been successful. Daily Maverick argues here that Johan Rupert, who controls the top luxury watchmaker CF Financier Richemont, actually has a stake in the Bulls, together with Patrice Motsepe, who is a mining and finance billionaire, who is also a brother-in-law to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, Saad, actually, who is also, one of these big, what this report calls one of the South Africa's billionaires, is actually the founder of Southern Hemisphere's big drug maker, Aspen Pharmacare Holdings Limited, and is the chairman of Sharks, which is a rival team that controlled the Wall Street lawyer Marco Massotti's US group. So these unions now were among the 7 of SA Rugby's 14 member associations to sign a letter opposing this deal. So it appears that the whole thing with the SARU scandal at the moment appears to be sort of like being controlled, sort of like a battle between these big guys who control the unions around the Springboks, and also some other players. But then it says that these unions actually raise concerns about the structure of the fee and the governance and the ethics of the deal, as well as potential changes to SA Rugby's commercialization and revenue mechanism. So you could hear that that's what Rob Hersov was speaking about in this video, that he feels that, you know, this deal was made by amateurs and they really didn't understand the business requirements. And at the end of the day, probably the deal will mean a loss for the Springboks, even as it tries to make profits in this deal. It says this Seattle-based Oakley was formed last year by the brothers Christopher and Ted Oakley of Oakley Partners LLC, and that the family invests in the sports sector with holdings in Seattle-based soccer, ice hockey, and basketball teams, as well as English Soccer League. So under this proposed deal, Oakley was to take 3 of the 7 voting board seats in the new commercial company, as well as have the right to appoint a chairman. And I think that was where the problem laid. So it appeared that they would have a really powerful share of the power around the control of the Springboks team, as it were. And because of this whole, contract, so to speak, Oakley would actually have effective control on the Springboks rugby brand's commercial rights. All right. So it then says that Oakley was actually selected over the Northern Hemisphere Six Nations Championships investor CVC Capital as a preferred bidder for the stake last December after presentations were made by both entities. But anyway, this is actually the whole problem with the rugby unions, as it were, and the whole deal with SARU's 1.3 billion deal with the American equity deal. And so this is actually why Rob Hersov actually says that McKenzie did the right thing by stopping this and presenting this to the parliament, and hopefully we'll see what comes out of it. But I think it's really interesting that that Rob Hersov now, who actually we know is actually really good with business and all that, thinks that the deal is wrong. I don't know, probably if they go on with this deal, it would actually almost mean selling away the rugby, Springboks team to the United States, this United States company, and probably have external control of the national, entity, so to speak, as rugby, and have more American influence into South Africa's national treasure. But anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? What do you know about this deal? Share your thoughts. Let's understand what Rob Hersov actually saying and what the implications of Gayton McKenzie's decision. Share your thoughts in the comments.